Tell me if you've heard this one before. You're watching your favorite movie one day, and then in the middle of the night, you spot leaving Netflix tomorrow. You pay for the service, but you don't own anything. On this channel, we talk about media a lot. It's kind of my thing. And that's because it's important to me and it's ingrained in me and my life from the very beginning. When I was 5 years old, I was gifted a copy of Batman the movie starring Adam West and Burt Ward on DVD, and a Michael Keaton Batman action figure. And honestly, watching that for the first time is one of my most vivid memories of my early childhood, and is a big part of why I fell in love with Batman as a character and his world too. Just sitting down on that couch with my dad and my uncle and soaking in that movie. Man, that is the stuff that dreams are made of. I remember long drives across country with the mobile DVD player in between my brother and I, watching classic movies and mini cartoons, whether it be Ben 10, JLU, or Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. Those were the best times, the simplest times, or even those weekends when my mom would go off on assignment for the Navy and my dad and my brothers would get out our physical copy of Medal of Honor Rising Sun on the GameCube, and we'd be playing that for hours all together. Those moments, we share hobbled over a gaming system, sliding in that disc, and playing that one version of the game that we own and we alone own and share, that makes for something special.
One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They've got comfortable not owning their CD or DVD collection. It's a transformation that's been a bit slower to happen. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress. If you resume at your game at another time, your progress file's still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game. It's about feeling comfortable with not owning your game.
I moved into college recently, so moving into college meant bringing my most needed possessions with me to fill out my room and to decide how I spend my time therein. And in that, as you know, I am a basement dweller. I am a gremlin. And so I decided I was, gonna bring my PS5 and bring my desktop computer. But I also made a deal with my brother, who I bought our Xbox Series X with way back when. Then that I pay his half of it and bring it with me, but coming with that meant he'd be canceling his subscriptions for the PlayStation and Xbox respectively, since he wouldn't be using them anymore. Making me realize soon after that there was a true surplus of games that I played avidly and consistently that I had never owned, and now were just gone.
And it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone. Poof.
And that's how all of this works, sadly. You love that movie or that show on Netflix or Max. One moment it's here, and next moment it's not accessible anymore. We love this platform. It's so accessible and it has, such a beautiful format. But now it's gone. It's gone. No matter how much of your hard-earned money you forked over to this corporation, it's gone. And you can't do anything about it. Unless you want to pay for whatever streamer that the show or movie got handed over to. And that's another corporate boss to hand your green to. let's talk something that is scarily relevant, and that's the reveal of the PS5 Pro. Yes, the $700 release of a system that hasn't even had much success in the gaming space whatsoever. Like, the PS5 launch, or maybe just this generation in general, has been a hilarious disaster. And now they're coming back for more of your wallet with just a more expensive re-release of a system that doesn't even have that many games. Now this begs the question, what do you do when you love a movie, TV show, comic, or musical work, but you never own it? Or heck, what if you don't have the money for the platforms that they're on?
I think that internet swapping and trading of different things is pretty cool, man. Kids want to listen to music, you know? I don't think bands should be so concerned with making every penny that should be squeezed out of everything. It's like, I want kids in Thailand to rock out when we show up to Thailand, you know? I don't care if they bought the record or not. If they download it off their computer, right on. If they taped it off to their friend, right on. It means they like music. I think people are too concerned with, like, it's going to kill the record industry because we're not going to be able to make every penny.
I think Dave makes a really interesting point here that doesn't come up a lot in the negative circles surrounding the conversation of piracy, which is, there's a distinction between millionaire, billionaire, penny pinching over people who can't afford the same experience as everybody else. Finding a more affordable option to experience the art, I do find most commonly that a lot of the people complaining about piracy and vying for its elimination happen to be of the billionaire variety. Because at some point, after you make a bunch of movies or sell a bunch of albums, the balance shifts from pure artistry to greed, I think. Now, I'm not saying artists shouldn't want money. They should, and independent artists should be paid for what they're worth. And that's a big problem in the industry right now. But we should also be cognizant of the fact that the people who consume art are not all in the same boat or in the same economic states that you are. And even more, the fact of the matter is, with the current streaming model, especially in the case of Max and Disney Plus, the shareholders and CEOs of these companies are getting the bulk of your buck, instead of the artists who actually made the thing. And even like getting into the older model of how they distributed media, you know, the gross of a movie was displayed and we knew where the money was going. Or we saw the ratings of a show and could see how much people are really watching. And then it makes sense when this show or this show is canceled. But now, a show can just be canceled for whatever reason. The streaming model in its current state is not friendly to artists, especially when they don't get what they want from the content. I hate this word. Content. It's a shareholder word. It's a business word. It's a commodification of art in its simplest form. It's breaking down art, human intellectual thought, and creativity into numbers, spreadsheets, and the mass gross we can have. That is one side. The other side is the artist. I think a very viable argument against the use of piracy in its very existence is the artist. We show support with our wallet. That's what we hear all the time. That movies like this or games like this will be made more if we spend the money to show that we support them. There's a lot to tackle here. Let's talk about music for a moment. In the Dave Grohl interview from earlier, he's talking about Napster, a free music platform from the early aughts that is not dissimilar to what we call Spotify now. But there's a big distinction from the two that is quite obvious after using Spotify for a bit. Is Spotify really free? Now, I've been using Spotify for a long time, and I've seen a slow but distinct shift in how they display and advertise their features. In a world of subscriptions and expensive record releases, Spotify was advertised as the music platform for everybody, because you didn't have to buy the songs, you had iTunes for that, you have Amazon Music for that, but Spotify is a democratized music platform for all. Until it isn't. It was slow, it was deliberate, but they introduced these features that slowly built up a wall for users. First, every song is in shuffle, unless you pay for subscriptions. And even the price for subscription started out at a humble price, but slowly went higher and higher. The next nail in the coffin was the monetization options for artists, which has slowly gotten worse and worse through the years, making it so much harder for rising artists to break through the constant noise. I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher this guy's name, his username on Reddit. Bartosz Skirnas, I'm so sorry, on Reddit did a really interesting case study into how much artists make on Spotify, and I'll link it below if you're interested in checking it out. But there's some very curious details here. They made sure to include artists of varying stream levels, which gives for some good variety in the study, so we can have some good scope here. Quote, how much you can earn on Spotify depends on a few factors. Listeners' location, type of their subscription, premium versus free, your distribution deal. You may notice that despite having the same number of streams, 2 million, Born Human earned 1K less than Generation Lost. As it turns out, Born Human's listeners are mostly from Turkey and Poland, where the payout rates are lower. End quote. Now, what does this all mean for Spotify as a whole, and what does it say about how much or how little they actually care about supporting artists? The Spotify monetization model is very complicated, but the broad points, according to an article on Printify, are, quote, artists aren't paid a set rate per stream, though artists generally earn an estimated per stream revenue between 0.003 cents and 0.005 cents. Streaming payouts also depend on the listener's country, subscription tier, and listening habits, as we discussed earlier from the Reddit article. Spotify uses a pro rata model that pulls all ad and subscription revenue for the month, keeps 30%, and distributes the remaining 70% to artists based on their share of total streams. End quote. Now, the 70-30 model is all well and good for artists like Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo, who are going to get millions upon millions of streams regardless. What does this mean for independent artists like you or whoever that don't have that kind of pull? The latest model Spotify has taken on with monetization is not kind whatsoever to independent artists, plain and simple. You have to achieve a minimum number of streams to make any kind of money, and even then you'll be making pennies for a while after, especially if you don't have a specific pull in the industry by luck or just being a nepo baby. Not saying anyone specifically, but there is most definitely an even bigger barrier to achieve success with the direction Spotify is going. We pay for media to support the artists, but what happens when the distributors want more of the money than they want the artist to have? Is consuming ethically a moot point? Recently, there was a court case between book publishers and the Internet Archive, a web database that has been dedicated to cataloging and preserving media of all kinds, including film, television, and books, in an open source forum for all people to use. The publishers did not like that. You want to know why? During COVID, the Internet Archive expanded their reach to an expansive, free-to-use library of books. Eli Tan of the New York Post talked about the court case in a recent article linked below. Quote, a final appeal could potentially be taken to the Supreme Court. In a statement, the Internet Archive said it was reviewing the court's opinion and will continue to defend the rights of libraries to own, lend, and preserve books. In its appeal, the nonprofit argued that its free digital library was protected by so-called fair use laws. And that appeal was a transformative use of the material done in the public interest. End quote. The use of the word fair use invoked something in me. Is this not what we do as YouTubers? As video essayists even? We share arts in media with you. Through our specific lens, albeit, but we share arts and media that is not our own in the pursuit and constant hope that you engage and look deeper into the imaginations and intellectual power of your fellow human beings. This is important. Physical media preservation is important. When publishing companies and distribution platforms get all handsy about copyright and ownership of art, it honestly really irritates me, because I think the beautiful, the most pure thing about art in the very beginning is that it was owned by no one except the one who created it. And the joy of it all was the eagerness to share it with your fellow human in the hope that we could relate and understand each other so much more than we did previously. Media preservation is paramount. I say paramount for a flourishing society. If we cannot see how creatives painted worlds of imagination in broad stroke in the past, and how they formed sentences to detail the beauty of one smile, how can we chart our path forward? As a Doctor Who fan, this conversation has a specific significance to me. There are so many lost episodes of the show, like so many that it is ridiculous. The BBC was so careless with a show that would one day become one of the most important advents of British culture, the TV series Doctor Who, which is really just an institution of their culture at this point, and so much more would never be able to be experienced if not for folks at home recording the show on VHS, preserving these pieces of art from long past. Not only singular arts of the time, but pieces that built to form a mosaic of the show's history to display the inklings of what the show has become to this day. Did you really think I'd go this whole piracy video without using this glorious early aughts piracy commercial? I'm not that bad at my job. Now, I understand that many of you are going to vehemently disagree with me in the comments, and that is great. I don't want or need all of you to agree. But we must be civil and try to understand each other through it all. Never resort to childish insults when we can have good, respectful discourse. I have complicated feelings about piracy, but ultimately, the yes or no question of piracy is really coming down to the type of the world we live in. Capitalism. This is only a problem because mass media corporations led by snakes like Zaslav and Iger have made art into this slop industrial machine. The prices go up, and with that, the fact that no matter how much of our money we give, it's never enough. They will never have enough of us. So at the end of the day, it begs the question, what do you believe? Do you hate piracy? Do you love it? Are you conflicted? Do you think things should change or stay the same? The question is, are you thinking, learning, exploring the options we have in front of us? And do you see the past, the flashing lights and the fragrant advertising? And with that, yo ho ho and a bottle of rum.